1.5 miles an hour, extra pace, Fernando Alonso.
It's what non-car people don't get. They see all cars as just 1.5 tons, 2 tons of wires, glass, metal and rubber. That's all they see. People like you or I know, we have an unshakable belief that cars are living entities. Well, not a Toyota Corolla, obviously, but you can develop a relationship with a car, and that's what non-car people just don't get. There was a guy called Charles Babbage who invented the computer back in the 18th century. He talked about the unerring certainty of machinery. Okay, now the problem you have is that when you have the unerring certainty of machinery, it is a machine. When something has foibles and won't handle properly, that gives it a particularly human quality because it makes mistakes. And that's how you can build a relationship with a car that other people won't get.
I had an opportunity to go places that people in America have never gone. It's that sense of adventure, that unknowing. It's the desire to do something and keep on going when the environment you're in is pretty freaking undesirable.
Anyone can drive the Grand Canyon. Anyone can put in Waze and say, oh, I want to drive the Grand Canyon and see it. But no one can ever say the views that we're seeing, like we have a White Crack, that they were there. There's only so many people that have been able to come out here, not just with their own grit or tenacity, but within the vehicles themselves that they could have taken out here. I've done a little bit here and there with my truck up in Oregon, and come here to Park City in Utah all the time for skiing in the winter. But looking at the backdrop that is Utah is just absolutely fantastic. It's one of the greatest states for overlanding and one of the closest adjacent to the Pacific Northwest. It just so happens that it's just a day's drive away. White Rim Road was a trail that I found out about maybe 6 or 7 months ago that has just been talked about in the community as one of the best off-roading trails out there for overlanders, and I thought, well, if it's one of the best things out there, I have to enjoy it myself.
Also, I'd say, like, we've talked a lot about Utah and just exploring more national parks, so when Nolen found, like, hey, there's this whole trip through Canyonlands and we can go to Zion and Arches, I think that was something we'd been trying to plan a trip for, and so it all just came together too.
When Layne and I officially decided to go on this trip, we realized very quickly that one of the most important things to have on this trip is support. Being 2 people out here, there's just not much of that. So we thought we'd devise a plan to have some of our best friends come along with us.
What's up, Alex?
Jack, who came on the trip, has a lot of expertise working with GMC, being a mechanic himself. He has a lot of expertise that he brings to the table that none of us really have, other than just basic knowledge. He has really the nitty-gritty of what makes a truck tick. We have Brian on the trip. We believe that's some of the most beautiful backdrop around here, and not a better man in our social group that could capture it. And Alex is someone that I really wanted to bring on the trip because he's been someone I've been really closely working with, both in special needs foundations and also on top of that at Microsoft. And I believe that it was just a trip that is something that he needed to experience. I know we've gone camping before in the past, but I feel like him personally hasn't been on a trip like this, and I thought it would be a greater opportunity to have someone who's just a great vibe to be around with.
Got my pit vipers, so I'm all right.
But then in total, just have something that's just, you know, a great experience for all of us.
So we headed out here on Saturday, July 31st, and drove from Oregon into Utah, spent the night in Salt Lake City, and then drove to Park City right away in the morning. Moab once we had Brian with us. And then once we hit the trail, we did a little bit of exploring in Arches the day before.
We actually did Arches the day before and it was a complete failure for the GMC terrain. I got stuck immediately in the sand because the car was too low to the ground.
You're saying 10 where you are.
And we actually had a lot of doubts if this terrain could make it through White Rim Road.
And then Monday, August 2nd, we were officially in Canyonlands. After visiting the visitor center where you have this nice paved road and can go really fast, that was still a pretty, I guess, like standard road. It was a dirt road, but it was very flat, very wide. It was quite the adventure for the morning. We started out on what was Mineral Bottom Road, I think. Didn't feel like we were really anywhere crazy. But then as soon as that turned into, we took our little left and we're on the White Rim Road. Everything changed. The landscape, what terrain we're driving over. As one of the navigators on this trip, like I've been looking at a map, one for Gaia, which is a really cool service. So we have GPS signal wherever we are. We can see altitude changes. I can see how long we've been stopped and how far we've driven for the day. And that's a very informative map. And then we also have the map provided from the park.
The interesting part about this entire trip is that there's not much content based on it. So when you try to research White Rim Road, there's a handful of videos on YouTube, fairly poor quality shots, so you can't see what really is happening, or it's just edited in a different way. And then pictures overall you have of X amount of campsites and road terrain, so just overall data on it isn't that much. So you kind of have to go off and put pieces together and then shoot in the dark on how it's going to go. One website will tell you it's extremely difficult. One website will tell you it's difficult. Another site will tell you, oh, well, all you need is four-wheel drive. Another one will tell you it's four-wheel drive and 5 inches of ground clearance minimum. It was difficult, but it was exciting to be able to figure out that this is something that not a lot of people get to experience.
I've had to pull Alex out quite a few times with his terrain. One of the first times was right after the first river crossing. We went around the bend and had to cross another river. And it was probably about a foot, 1 or 2 feet of mud. And Alex got stuck after Nolen and I already crossed and made it through. So I had to back up through the river and back through all the mud. And we had to hook Alex up, and these canyons, they blow my mind. I pulled him out of there like it was nothing.
Getting pulled by that massive vehicle and just being in a small little SUV is just, it's insane. It's getting rocked left and right. You had no control over, what was happening. It was crazy.
We having some troubles, Alex?
Yeah, just something. Little tape. Needs some more tape. The CB radios are just really fun because it almost feels like we have our own private channel of communication that we can just talk to each other on and be in constant contact.
We looked at the forecast, and coming from the Pacific Northwest, we were like, oh, it's always rains. We always have a jacket in our cars or something like that. But coming to Utah, it's at 95, 98, and blue skies and sunny, so we never thought about bringing rain jackets. But then we get out there, and it's full monsoon weather.
That flash flood was really crazy. It was just no visibility out in the canyon, and the rain downpour was just so torrential. We really thought we were going to get swept away at points.
I personally have dealt with flash floods and excessive rain, and this was just a completely different walk in the park because that was on a street. It was lit by street lights. This is in the middle of nowhere with no support. If you break something, you are done. So it was very exciting, but it was also just overall a almost life-changing experience, being able to understand that how we personally can push ourselves, not only, but also with how we push these vehicles.
So currently heading into a storm. This storm looks wicked, as you can tell. This rainstorm, you can't see through it at all, so this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's insane.
And the rain stopped at the perfect point when we were on the uphill, and we eventually got out of it, so.
Probably about halfway through our day with the flash flood coming, and having to drive up it and experience all the thunder and lightning with all the heavy rain pour driving through it. I think it was definitely a new experience for me, but it was enjoyable and it was a lot of fun.
A lot of people have been commenting on how it's very low to the ground. However, see that? It says terrain right there. This thing can go over anything.
We wanted to push these cars to the limit because these cars weren't meant to ride in some city roads, just ordinary trails. We wanted to go to the black diamond of off-roading, and we wanted to capture what these vehicles can do on that black diamond trail. So that's what we're doing here.
I recommend anyone that comes out here does it with a group of people, at least one other person, just to help navigating which is the best way to get around some of these rocks or go over these rocks, because it can definitely be dangerous.
Then I think we're just gonna have you come straight down. You should be fine because you're at an angle too.
So when we did our White Rim Road trail, it took about 13 hours, and it was so much fun because I had so much adrenaline while I was driving, and then when getting to our campground late at night, it was just so cool to sleep under the stars and see the Milky Way, which I've never been able to see before.
It's just been a phenomenal experience being away from society for just a little bit.
I think the thing that we were anticipating the most was the view. We couldn't see anything the night before, so when we woke up, we didn't expect to see what we did, and it was insane.
It's such a beautiful place to come to. Just the views you have here at White Crack campsite, just the views along the road.
people ask me, so why do you like overlanding? It's like, well, I like camping a lot and I like hiking, but I also like the creature comforts from home. So I have a cell booster built onto the vehicle, so if we do need to call someone, we can. Then on top, we have about 20 gallons of gas and 5-gallon jerry cans. We also have an 8-gallon pressurized water system by Waterport. That's just fantastic because it allows us in this immense heat to take showers before we go to bed, because it gives us that extra element of comfort. And then Ironman's been an absolute help with just getting some of the real essentials that we need that makes a big difference. So for example, our rooftop tent by Ironman is a great experience at night. It's just overall really easy to set up. And our awning system, as we're interviewing this under right now, there's literally no shade out here because it's in the middle of the desert in Utah. So this allows us to be more comfortable and even just be livable out here.
You just remember like how small you really are in the big world. Like when you look at the sights around it, it's just like, wow, that's beauty, that's art, that's magnificent and fantastic, and something that is so insurmountable that when I think about like the problems I have or the decisions I need to make about maybe what the next step in life looks like, it's like none of this really matters when you look at just the scale, right? They're all such small, minuscule problems. And I think that that's something that's really refreshing anytime I'm just out in the wilderness and separated from the pressures and norms and expectations of the world and society and other people around me. So that's been always a good reminder.
Oh, baby,
one of my all-time favorite quotes within the automotive community and almost an idol of mine as a car enthusiast is Chris Bangle. He was the chief of design for BMW for many, many years. One of his most famous quotes was, "I don't make vehicles just to get you from point A to point B. I build mobile works of art." And I feel like it really reflects with my passions, because I personally don't believe that these are just pieces of metal on 4 wheels and a chassis with a MSRP sticker on it. I think these are products that have souls to it that can really reflect the driver themselves and overall change your life experience. You know, one of the biggest things I live by is life's too short to drive a boring car, because I feel like if you get the right angle of a vehicle and you're able to understand how something works, it's one of the coolest experiences ever to be able to move something that's so big and pluck it around a small trail in the middle of nowhere. And it really helps you get to these kind of places. You built this kind of almost bond with it, more than you would typically with any other product.
I need someone to love. All I need is someone, knows just where I'm going, yeah. Somebody knows just where I'm going, baby. Said I'm gonna make it without breath. Oh, I'm gonna keep on trying. I'm gonna keep on trying. I'm certain it happens all the time, yeah.
What do you see when you turn out the light?
I can't tell you, but it sure feels like madness.
I learned through this experience how to really feel.
Oh, see that? Engineers are working. Yeah. Good, strong.